What's up, guys? Well, too all back with another one, and today is going to be a fun one because today is a story that I tell about the first time that I smoked, and more specifically, the first time that I smoked weed. So this story begins with me being kind of like cool with this guy like in my art class in high school, and we'll call him Charles. And his name and Charles, you know, we like every art class we like, you know, sit at the same table, shoot the shit, you know, all that kind of stuff you would normally do in school. And he would tell me stories about, you know, shit that he does, you know, stuff that, because he was like a grade, like I want to say like a grade or two above me. I don't remember, but he was above me for sure. So, you know, he's like telling me stories about stuff that he does and whatnot, and you know, a lot of the time the stories are funny, so I'm like, oh, okay, cool. And one of the things he did is like told me stories about, you know, him smoking weed. So I'm like, you know, hearing all the stories, I'm like, it sounds kind of cool. Like, you know, you're a curious kid, think stuff like that is cool, you know, especially when it's like stuff that you're told not to do. Of course, you think it's like cool to do, so I'm like, oh, that sounds pretty dope. So eventually over time it gets to the point where he eventually is like, hey man, you want to, like, you know, you want to come on out and like come hang out and smoke or whatever. And you know, like I said, me being that curious kid, I'm like, yeah, fuck it, yeah, sure. And so we plan it out, and it's like, okay, well, you know, we'll pick you up, come chill at my buddy's house that I always chill when I smoke. So I'm like, okay, cool. So it gets to the day, you know, I tell my mom that, like, you know, I'm going to hang out with some like friends. She's like, okay. And they come and pick me up. We go on out there, and turns out one of my other good friends from school was like dating the friend whose house we were going to. So I was like, oh, okay, bet. So it's not, everybody's not strangers. I know like two of the people that are going to be over here. Everything's cool, right? So we go over there, and you know, it's whatever, it's cool. And we're just hanging out. And they're like, all right, you know, we're gonna go smoke, let's go. So there's like, I don't know, 3, 4 of us, I don't know, probably like 3 if I can remember. And we go into the bathroom, and this bathroom is like pretty fucking small. It's like a step above being like a fucking like half bath. Like, it's only like a full bathroom because there's a tub in there, but it's fucking small. This bathroom's small. So we like cram into the bathroom, and sitting there, and like we're just gonna, like, you know, hotbox this shit out. This is before I knew, like, you know, what the fuck a hotbox was. So it's like, we're just gonna hotbox this shit out, and I'm like, okay, cool. And you know, what we're smoking out of is probably the jankiest fucking thing that I've ever smoked out of. From my memory, this is what I'm gonna describe. This thing looked like it was handcrafted by like Mario in one of the random levels where he's trying to save Peach, and he, like, you know, is kind of taking like a smoke break because, you know, these bosses in these levels are fucking stressful. Bowser's a you know, son of a bitch, right? So this shit was made from like PVC pipe, but it was different pieces of PVC pipe. It might have been like one piece. It might have been like one piece. Either way, it had this. It was set up to where you could hold it. One end was coming down to where you could hold it. One end went out and up, and that was the ball. And then one end was the end where you pull through. And I don't remember if they drilled like a hole into it to make like a carb or anything. I can't remember, but I'm gonna go ahead and say that's exactly what it was. So they whipped this contraption out, and I'm like, all right. So, you know, the ball. So what they did for the ball was like a typical, like you take a piece of like aluminum foil, you poke holes in it, put it over top. So they did that, and like they loaded this thing. And at the time, I don't really remember what was in there. I can't tell you if it was like, you know, some gas, or if it was just like some straight like swag. But like they loaded up and they hit it or whatever. They're like, oh yeah, you know, and they passed it to me. This is my first time hitting, so I'm like kind of nervous. I'm kind of just joking with them, laughing, and I go and I hit it, and I'm like, all right, cool. I don't remember if I started feeling it immediately. Probably because I had never really done anything. At that point, I had never like drank either, so it's kind of just like you know, a first experience all around or something like that. So I think I felt it like probably after that first hit. So it passes around again, and it gets back to me. And they're at this point, we're just kind of like shooting the shit. They're like making jokes about random dumb shit. And like, I go to pull on it. One of them says something, and it makes me laugh. And when I laugh, my lips are like still on the end. So when I laugh, I kind of blow out. The aluminum foil, I guess wasn't like wrapped around it tight enough, and it just kind of like blew it off. Like blew the whole like bowl off. And I'm like, dude, this is like my like first time fucking smoking, and it just like potentially like ruin this bowl or something. So I'm like, oh fuck. And they're looking at it, they look at me, and I'm looking at it, I look at them. And they're just like, dude, you know, you gotta be more careful. It was good because they were like, where to go? And they looked on the floor, and it's like sitting right there. So the ball's on the floor, but it's fine because, you know, it didn't spill out. So they just picked it up and just kind of like secured it back to the fucking, that little piece, that top of the PVC pipe or whatever. And fucking, you know, start sparking it again. So we sit there, we chit chat, shoot the shit, we finish the ball. Now, I'm feeling pretty good, feeling, you know, feeling wavy and whatnot. So, we just sit, we chill for a little bit longer. And then it's like, alright, everyone's gonna start dipping out. So at that time, it's like, hey, the guy whose place it was like, I can give you a ride home, it's cool. And so get in their car, and they start taking me up. Now they live on the other side of town, so it's not too far of a drive, but you know, it's gonna be like, I don't know, maybe 10 minutes. So we get over towards my place, and as we get on the highway you have to turn onto to get to my neighborhood, this guy gets pulled over, and I'm like, no. I'm like, dude, no, there's no fucking way. Because, you know, at that age when it's like your first time trying some shit like that, the first thing you're gonna think is, you know, like, oh shit, they know. So he gets pulled over. Cop comes up talking to him, license, registration, blah blah blah, and they're like, yeah. So they go through the whole spiel. It's like, so what are you guys doing tonight? It's like, oh, just dropping him off. We were all hanging out. He's like, okay. So he goes back and he runs his shit, and I'm like, oh, dude, they fucking know, dude, we're fucked. Like, in my head, I'm not, like, trying to freak out in person, because I'm like, dude, I don't want to, like, freak out in person, so I'm just kind of sitting there, just like, dude, what? Like, what are the odds, right? And cop comes back after a little bit, and thank goodness everything was good. I think he was just trying to see, like, what was going on, like, what we were up to, because it was, like, it was kind of late, you know, it was around after midnight, somewhere around there, so he's probably just trying to see what was going on. Like, normally, like, cops in that area, like, don't have much else to do or something, so they'll just kind of, like, randomly stop people sometimes, but everything was cool, got me home, I got in the house, I think, yeah, my mom was, like, still awake, and, you know, at that point, the first thing you think of is, like, don't look, don't look, don't look. I came in, she was like, oh, hey, it's like, yeah, fun. I was like, mm-hmm. And I, like, got to my room as quick as possible, and I remember just, like, laying on my fucking bed, just, like, fucking blitzed, and just, like, staring at the fucking ceiling. But, you know, it was a good time. It was a good first experience. It could have been a pretty shitty one. I could have, like, bought some shit and got, like, ripped off or something. I don't know. But it could have been a pretty shitty experience, and I'm really glad that it was a good one. So that's going to be the story for today. Just want to share that with you guys. You know, about my first time smoking. It's kind of weird telling stories like that, but you know what? Like, people like a good story. Sometimes the stories are mild. Sometimes the stories are a little bit, you know, not suitable. But either way, that's going to be it for today, guys. Like, subscribe if you enjoyed it. There'll probably be more stories. I have a good chunk of stories revolving around that and whatnot that I could tell. So there'll be more stories in the future. And I guess I'll see you in the next one. Peace.